No bread, no shoes, no toilet paper. Welcome to life as a foot soldier in Napoleon Bonaparte's Grande Armée, where you're expected to march across Europe with bleeding feet, an empty stomach, and the constant threat of having your head blown off for the glory of a short Corsican with a height complex. My name is Marcel Ingram, and I was 17 when the recruiting officer showed up in my village near Lyon in 1805. He painted a glorious picture. Adventure, plunder, women swooning over our smart blue uniforms. The emperor rewards his brave men, he said, twirling his mustache. You'll return with pockets full of gold and stories to make your grandchildren gasp. What he failed to mention was that most of us would never live to see those grandchildren, or that our smart blue uniforms would quickly become lice-infested rags that we'd be wearing for years without replacement, or that those pockets supposedly destined for gold would more likely be filled with moldy breadcrumbs and, if you were very lucky, a stolen potato. The first thing you learn in Napoleon's army is that the official ration of bread, meat, and wine exists primarily in the imagination of supply officers. In reality, we got half portions of rock-hard bread that could break teeth, mystery meat that may or may not have been horse on good days, and vinegar-like wine when the officers had finished the good stuff. Most days we foraged, a fancy military term for steal from peasants who hate you. One winter in Poland, we were so desperate that François Allard from my unit boiled his leather belt into soup. Not bad, he declared, slurping the gray concoction. Needs salt. He died of dysentery 3 days later. We buried him without his belt. Someone had already claimed it for future meals. Speaking of dysentery, allow me to introduce you to the true enemy of Napoleon's army. Not the British, not the Russians, but our own bowels. For every man killed by enemy fire, 3 died of disease. The military medical system consisted mainly of overworked surgeons whose primary surgical tool was the amputation saw. Got a fever? Amputation. Bullet wound? Amputation. Stub toe? You guessed it, amputation. Dr. Moreau, our regimental surgeon, was so quick with his saw that we called him 3-Minute Moreau. I can take a leg off in less time than it takes to hard-boil an egg, he'd boast while drinking surgical alcohol. When I caught typhus in Spain, I hid in a ditch for 3 days to avoid his medical attention. Then there's the walking. Oh God, the walking. Napoleon's army marched everywhere. We averaged 15 miles per day, carrying 60 pounds of equipment, often on empty stomachs. During the retreat from Moscow in 1812, we walked 750 miles through Russian winter. Our boots disintegrated. Men's feet froze and turned black. Some cut strips from dead horses to wrap their feet. The Emperor rides, we die, became our unofficial motto. Napoleon, on his white horse, would pass by our straggling columns, and we'd be forced to cheer him. Try cheering enthusiastically when your toes have fallen off from frostbite. Equipment was another joy of army life. Our muskets, the famous Charleville models, were impressive weapons that could fire 2 rounds per minute, assuming it wasn't raining, or humid, or Tuesday. If all conditions were perfect, you might hit something within 50 yards. Usually, you just created a lot of smoke, deafened yourself, and then frantically tried to reload while the enemy cavalry charged. Felix Arnold in my company once fired his musket and it exploded in his hands. When he complained to our captain about the quality of French firearms, the captain had him flogged for insulting French industry. Felix later lost an arm at Austerlitz and was sent home with a certificate thanking him for his service. No pension, though the empire was on a budget. And the fleas, the lice, the bedbugs, we were walking ecosystems. My shirt is moving on its own, Martin Islington claimed one morning in Spain. We didn't doubt him. The parasites were so bad that we'd sit around campfires picking lice from our seams and betting on which ones would die first in the flames. Military entertainment at its finest. In 1809, after the Battle of Wagram, I found myself promoted to corporal, not for bravery, mind you, but because everyone above me was dead. This magnificent career advancement earned me 2 extra francs per month, which I never received, and the privilege of ordering other miserable men to their deaths. Congratulations, my friend Pierre said, slapping my back. Now you'll be shot by the enemy while standing instead of lying down. Romance? Forget it. Local women tended to hide when Napoleon's army arrived, and for good reason. Not all soldiers were gentlemen, especially after months of marching and fighting. The lucky ones found companionship in camp followers, women who traveled with the army as laundresses, cooks, nurses, and, well, companions. Most were wives or girlfriends of soldiers, though some were local women who decided that following the army was better than what they'd left behind. My brief romance with Fiona Ashcroft, an English merchant's daughter who somehow ended up following our regiment through Spain, ended when she traded me for a sergeant who had stolen a chicken. "It's not personal," she explained. "It's protein." Speaking of Spain, if you think regular warfare is bad, try guerrilla warfare. The Spanish resistance fighters would wait until we were asleep, then slit throats or poison wells. We couldn't tell civilians from combatants. Napoleon's solution? Treat them all as combatants. This brilliant strategy won us exactly 0 friends. Then there was Russia in 1812, Napoleon's masterpiece of military miscalculation. We marched in with 600,000 men. We marched out with about 30,000. The Russians burned everything in their retreat, leaving us nothing to eat. Then winter arrived early. The thermometer dropped to -30 degrees. Men froze to death while standing on watch. Horses died by the thousands, and yes, we ate them raw when we couldn't light fires. I watched men fight to the death over a dead raven. I saw others drink from puddles containing human waste because they were so thirsty. I witnessed soldiers cut open dead horses and crawl inside the carcasses for warmth. "The Emperor has a plan," our officers assured us. The plan, apparently, was for us to die in Russia while he rushed back to Paris to raise another army. When we finally crossed back into friendly territory, a supply officer counted what remained of our regiment. "Where are the rest?" he asked, checking his clipboard. "Feeding crows between here and Moscow," our sergeant replied. The officer frowned. "That's inconvenient. I have uniforms for them." New uniforms. After 6 months of wearing the same ragged clothes, we laughed until we cried. Then we just cried. What's truly ironic about being in Napoleon's army is that despite all the suffering, we loved him. When he returned from exile in 1815, thousands of veterans flocked to his banner again. I was one of them, standing in the rain at Waterloo, watching British cannonballs tear holes in our ranks. I asked myself why I had come back. Perhaps it was because, for all the misery, Napoleon made us feel part of something greater than ourselves. Or perhaps it was simply because, after years of war, we didn't know how to be civilians anymore. In the end, the British won. Napoleon was exiled again, and thousands more Frenchmen died in the mud. I survived, losing only 3 toes to frostbite and part of my hearing to cannon fire. When people ask me about my time in the Grande Armée, they expect tales of glory. I tell them about Marcel's rule of military physics instead. The higher the general, the less he knows about the mud at the bottom. Napoleon died in exile on St. Helena in 1821, allegedly from stomach cancer, though some say he was poisoned. Either way, he died in a bed, which is more than can be said for most of the men who fought for him. As for me, I received a Veterans Medal in 1830, which I promptly sold for food during a bad harvest. It seems fitting somehow, exchanging glory for bread, just as we always did in the army. So the next time you see a painting of Napoleon crossing the Alps on a magnificent steed, remember the thousands of men walking behind him with bleeding feet, empty stomachs, and dysentery. Remember that behind every great man of history are countless ordinary men who paid the price for that greatness. And if anyone ever tries to recruit you for glory, ask them about the toilet paper situation first. That tells you everything you need to know about an army.